Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're here. For those of you online, glad you're here also. We appreciate your presence here today. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pass these out now. Where's Ellie and Owen? Sorry, Owen, I changed my mind. While you're here, if you didn't get a lyric sheet already, you can use your phone for lyrics and to check in and things like that. You can also use a lyric sheet, which are over there by the iced coffee. Or if you'd prefer to check in with like a pen and paper, old school, you can grab a clipboard. There's also some announcements and things in there that might be good for you to know. So raise your hand if you want one of those, and Ellie and Owen will get you one. And if you are using your phone, you can sign on via your phone's browser to thegrove.today. thegrove.today. Again, those are your song lyrics. That's a way for you to check in. And if you want to do offering digitally, you can do that via thegrove.today as well. All right. The other bit of housekeeping I have to tell you is I'm back. I don't know if you were here last week, you may have noticed I wasn't singing. My voice wasn't working. I'm almost at full capacity today. Almost. So I'm going to be singing quietly. So if I have to stop, you guys keep going, okay? Can you guys sing nice and loud? I'll do as much as I can. But all right, well, when you're ready, please rise or stand as you are able, and we will begin by singing together this morning. This is for everyone born. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star. When we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song, the hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. Creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Gay and for straight, a place at the table, a covenant shared, a welcoming space, a rainbow of race and gender and color. For gay and for straight, delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yeah. God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For everyone born, a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be, to work, to speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born, the right to be free. Amen. You can have a seat.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is wonderful to be here, out here with you in the Grove, albeit a little sticky this morning. It's an excellent opportunity to be able to gather together outdoors, enjoy this beautiful space, and to be able to worship with you. My name is Jeremy. I'm the pastor here of the Grove Cottage Grove, and we are a brand new church that seeks to grow goodness. So we hope that every interaction that you have with us, whether you're out here in the Grove with us, whether you're inside throughout the week, whether you are watching with us online, you're experiencing healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life. One really quick note before we jump to the other things we need to talk about up front. The lyric sheets are wrong.
Oh no!
So if you have a lyric sheet, just throw it away, because we print off lyric sheets every week, and I printed off last week's. I will take all the blame for that. Katie sent me the right ones. I printed off the wrong ones this morning. So I'm going to turn all of your attentions. Statistically speaking, probably most of you, if not all of you, have smartphones, and I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to your browser and go to thegrove.today. thegrove.today, and that will redirect you to the page on our website that has all of the lyrics, but then a bunch of other stuff that Anna and I are about to reference. So again, thegrove.today. I apologize. I take full responsibility for screwing up the lyric sheets.
Or you can just hum along like my daughter does.
Or you can just hum along. Yeah, that works too.
That's fine. Just
Yep.
pretend like you know the lyrics. I don't care. Okay, so I'm going to draw your attention to the handout. If you don't have a handout, you can, there's some handouts over there. Otherwise, grab a kid. I'm sure they'll be fine with grabbing you one. So, but otherwise, inside the handout, I want to draw your attention to the giving section. There's 3 ways to give. In person, there's cash or check. I never carry cash on me, so the way I do it is Venmo. That's easy, or online at thegrovecg.church/give. One thing that we want to note is that to be a sustainable church, they're looking on about 4,000 local givings a month, and the great thing about that is the conference actually matches that donation.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. So another thing, if you do prefer to give in person via check or cash, in a little bit, offering basket's going to come around. However, if you don't have that, that's fine. One thing that we are going to encourage you to do is to fill out this insert. This guy here. The insert allows us to know that you're here. You're able to say, hey, I was here today. If you have new contact information, or you're here for the first time and you want us to be able to follow up with you, to acknowledge that you are here, you can fill out the contact information. And then the backhand side allows you to request information about very specific things. So if you're wanting to learn more about the children's ministry, or about volunteer opportunities, or about baptism, you can indicate those on the back, and then we will follow up with you about that. I'm now going to turn your attention to either the backhand side of this, or the 3 announcements that are on the page here as you continue to scroll down. The first one is Vacation Bible School. So many of you might know that the Grove is a multi-site church. What that means is that we have 2 locations, one up in Woodbury, which is 160 years old, much more established, much larger, and then our Cottage Grove location, which is brand new, just a little bit newer and a little bit smaller. The Grove as a whole is going to be offering Vacation Bible School on August 1st through 5th, 9 o'clock to noon, at our Woodbury location. So if you are interested in that, you can still register for it. You can either click on the link, or there's the QR code on the back if you have the physical copy in front of you, and you can scan that and register there. I'm actually going to skip to become a partner. If you consider the Grove your church home, if you consider this like your church family, we'd love for you to consider becoming a partner. A partner simply means that you're committed to this being your church, and you show up on Sundays when you're able to show up on Sundays. You don't have to be here every week. We understand you have a life outside of this, especially during the summer. That you're committing to give something regularly. Does not matter the amount. We're not checking anybody's pay stubs or tax information. It's just like a commitment to give something regularly. And then the third one is to grow, which means that you're going to grow alongside other people through participating in volunteer opportunities that fit your gifts and passions. If you are interested in learning more about becoming a partner, you can indicate that on the back of the insert. The last thing, there's actually 2 inserts today. I'm going to draw your attention to this one, which we were handing out at Schoolie Family Fun Night on Thursday. Next Sunday at 5 p.m., we are going to be having a kids concert in the Grove with special guest Steph Plant.
Well, that'll be fun.
Katie, what else do they or we need to know about this concert?
Oh, Steph Plant is amazing. She's a friend of ours from college. She's going to be up in the area. She's from St. Louis originally, but she said, hey, I'm going to be there. And I said, oh my gosh, we need to have you for a kids concert because we have so many kids in the community who've been coming to the Grove for playtime and on Sunday mornings, obviously. So Steph does both folk music for adults and children. She's an artist in many ways, a Montessori teacher, all the things. She's a brilliant, brilliant person and an incredible musician. My kids, who, if you know them, are not still or quiet pretty much ever. And when I turn on Steph Plant's kids album, they are so chill, and I enjoy listening to it too. So you can come, bring a blanket, bring a picnic, just enjoy, let your kids some room to move around and hear some music that's for them, and I promise you won't hate it either.
All right. So again, that is next Sunday at 5 p.m. right out here in the Grove. Weather permitting, of course, but the weather's been great so far, so we're going to trust that it's going to be great next Sunday too. We're now going to do 2 different things, a little bit interactive. The first one is that we're trying to more and more normalize people filling out the inserts. We want to be able to make sure that people are doing that, which is why the clipboards started rolling out last week. And the clipboards include a pen. Okay? So what we're going to do is we are all going to spend 1 minute filling out the clipboard. No, don't fill out the clipboard. Fill out the insert on the clipboard. Filling out the insert, even if you just put your name on it, and then everybody, when the offering basket goes around later in the service, has something to put in there, okay? So we're going to cue up music, and you're going to have 1 minute to fill it out, and then we're going to reconvene for another interactive thing. Take a moment. Fill out the insert, even if it's just your name. It can even be first name. Then you've got something to put in that basket when it comes around later. Good to go. All right. Hopefully our live stream does not get blocked because of that. But another quick note that we did not get to is simply that kids are valuable members of the Grove's church community, and we celebrate being able to have them as a part of worship. During the summer, we do not have full programming during the service, but as you can see, we've got lots of activities for them to be able to participate in. It is not supervised, so if you can just kind of have your peripheral vision on them as parents to make sure that they're not like sprinting all the way to Jamaica, that would be fantastic. In just a moment, we're going to actually invite them to come up here, but we'll get to that in, again, just a moment. So now we get to the introvert's least favorite part of the service, which we call connection point. As a new church, building meaningful relationships with one another is important because we're all new at this, and sometimes that's a little bit tricky or difficult, and so we have some forced interaction that we've built into to the service. So in just a moment, I'm going to have you stand up, find somebody near you that you don't know or don't know very well, and I want you to discuss this question. You can discuss other things if you'd like, but this is kind of the prompt that we're giving. We're in this series called Campfire Stories, and I want you to discuss who is your favorite storyteller. This could be like an author that you read regularly or an author that your kids really like. It could be like your grandpa or your grandma. It could be a movie producer, whatever. Who is one of your favorite storytellers? Okay? So I'm going to have you stand up, find somebody near you, a couple minutes, discuss that, introduce yourself, and we'll reconvene in about 2 or 3 minutes.
All right, you can find your way back to your seats. All right. Well, that time has come that Jeremy mentioned where we're going to be collecting both kind of the symbol of your physical presence here today as an offering, and also if you have paper offerings, we'll take those too. Warren, would you mind go ahead and now that you sat down and got comfy, Warren's gonna walk around, so just reach out if you have something to put in there, those worship inserts or anything else, but we're just glad you're here. Before our next song, I want to sing one of my favorite hymns. It's called Be Thou My Vision. And I love it. It always has a way of recentering me and reconnecting me with God in the midst of the chaos of life. And as I was thinking about this song this week, I wanted to have something that sort of introduce it, like a prayer or something that allowed us to connect with the song deeper. And then I finally was just like, you know what? I don't think people need to hear me talk anymore. So instead, what we're going to do is I think maybe even more meaningful. Sometimes we connect with words. Sometimes we just connect with stillness and with quiet. So I want to give us the opportunity for a moment before we start singing this song together to just be still and listen for the sounds of the divine in the world around us. The kids, the birds, the cars, whatever. Let's be still for a moment, and then Jacob will start playing, and hope you reconnect with God here in this moment. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only, first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. Heart of mine, heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of
So we are our second week into a series which we're calling Campfire Stories. So we're looking at these old tales from the Old Testament, and we've specifically chosen some that are a little bit complicated or even controversial, and said, what if instead of focusing on all of these details that we can get kind of stuck on, that instead we retold them as if they were stories that are told around a campfire? What are the things that we would want to emphasize if that is the setting that we are telling them in? And really, like, what are the details that explain why these stories have survived for thousands of years, and these are the stories that have been continued to have been told. So last week we had Trevor come up and read a reimagined version of Noah and the Big Boat, and this week we're going to have Anna come up and read the story of Rahab the Survivor. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need our kids to come up here. And as last week, we're going to give a bribe of cookies. Kids. We've got cookies up here. If you come up, sit down kind of in a semicircle around Anna. Anna's going to read you the story for today, and then she will give you a cookie afterwards. Parents, just so you know, we do have these allergen-free cookies to go along with the non-allergen-free s'moreos.
All right. Oh, look at all these kids coming. How cool. Okay, so wait, does anyone know how to march in place? Can you guys show me how you march in place? Okay, you're gonna have to remember that, okay? March in place. Okay, now you can sit down. Okay, so this is the story of Rahab the Survivor. You ready? A long time ago in a land far away, the Israelite people were on the move. Recently freed from slavery in Egypt and under the leadership of a man named Joshua, they were getting extremely close to their new home. They were marching there. Do you guys remember the marching? Right? Okay, but something stood in their way. A city known as Jericho that was surrounded by a gigantic wall. Show me with your hands. How big of a wall was this? Was this really big? Oh my gosh. 159 tall. Oh, 159 centimeters tall, you guys. That's huge. Whew. No way. Oh my gosh, 159 centimeters. That's okay. If the Israelites stood a chance of moving into their new home, they first had to defeat the people of Jericho and people like them who already lived there. But how would this lightly armed band of slaves capture an entire city surrounded by a 159 centimeter wall? How? Okay, what they needed was some insider information. So Joshua sent out spies. What do spies look like? Yeah, with glasses and a hat. Do I look like a spy? No, I don't look like a spy. Oh, a spy clothes? Okay. Oh, for sure. Yes. Oh, this is such good information. So, yes. So the first place they went in Jericho was the house of a woman named Rahab, where they spent the night there. Again, the spies weren't sneaky, and the king of Jericho found out quickly that they were not only in the city, but they had entered Rahab's house. Guards were sent to her door, but Rahab hid the spies, then lied to cover up for them. She said, yes, I had 2 strangers come and visit me. They took off before sundown, but if you leave now, they don't stand a chance against brave men like you. Calling them out from their hiding spot, Rahab opened her heart. She had heard all the great things that God had done for their people, setting them free from slavery, parting a great sea for them to cross safely on dry ground, giving them military victories. So Rahab made a deal with the spies. She'd let them return to the army if they promised to spare her and her family. The spies responded, "Deal." A rope was let down to allow them to escape from her window. Like that? Is that how you climb down a rope? Yeah? Okay. That rope remained. Oh, they just threw a rope? Yeah? Okay. The rope remained as a sign to the Israelites to spare her household. So that rope remained there. You're right. They threw it down and that's where it remained. So that's exactly what happened. When the Israelites returned to take over Jericho, Rahab and her family were spared. But even more important, her family was welcomed as vital members of the Israelite community. And even 1,000 years later, Rahab was still being celebrated as a hero and the great-great-great-great-grandma of Jesus. The end. Now, who wants cookies? Oh my goodness. Okay, let's get some cookies.
All right, and let's give Anna a hand for reading that story for us. Crackers. Anybody need the allergy-free ones? Like, no, get up. Be gone, allergy-free cookies. All right. So earlier I had you discuss with folks some of your favorite storytellers. Have you ever noticed how a single storyteller can really change how a specific story lands? Like one person can tell the exact same story with the exact same people and setting and everything one way, but a change in storyteller completely changes the dynamic of a story and how that story lands and hits with you. A storyteller, the perspective of a specific storyteller makes a huge difference. Now, we could say that like there's one storyteller and they have an agenda and they're trying to drive that agenda home as opposed to this other one. That may or may not be the case, but it's clear that a difference in storyteller makes a difference in perspective, right? This is especially the case when it comes to people who are telling a story from a very dominant perspective. So if the storyteller is someone who has like the cultural credentials, they are a person of power and influence. If they tell a story, it's different than someone who's telling that exact same story who is not in that position of cultural influence and power. Now, it could be that they are, again, trying to grind their own axe, that they're trying to accomplish something, that they're trying to do something nefarious even, or it could not be. It could just be that a difference in perspective is hard to understand when it's not coming from a dominant voice. So one of the biggest issues that we are currently discussing as a culture here in the United States is what to do with history. Specifically what to do with American history. My guess is that when we grew up learning American history, either at home or in school, you probably heard a version of American history that was written by someone who looks like me. Is that safe to say? And because that version of history was written by someone who looks like me, what often happens from a perspective of someone who's telling the story is the person who's telling the story is really good at making the people who look like them out to be the main characters and the heroes. Well, what has happened over the last 50 years or so as the country has continued to diversify and some of those non-dominant voices, particularly women and people of color, people of color have gained more of an opportunity to share their voice, to tell their stories. Some of what we thought we knew about American history has been told a little bit different. And the perspective that they share is just a little bit different. And that can be a little bit contentious, right? And sometimes we want to like push off, no, they have an agenda, clearly. But it's a change in perspective. And sometimes the best and most important thing for any story is simply to be able to see it from another perspective. So in 2017, the author and scholar Clint Smith, any of you familiar with Clint Smith? Clint Smith decided that he was going to go on this journey going across the United States, and he was going to visit some very specific locations across the United States to try to get at how the story of slavery in America is told, or is brushed under the rug. And one of those places that he went to visit was Monticello. Any of you been to Monticello before? A couple of you have been to Monticello. So as you do when you go to a historic place like this, Monticello is, of course, the plantation that was owned by Thomas Jefferson. As you do when you go to a historic place like this, you go on a tour to learn about that place. And so Clint Smith, on this journey across the country, goes to Monticello. He goes on a tour along with all these other people who've traveled across the country to this place. And he's shocked because many people who are on that tour did not know that Monticello was a plantation where slaves lived. And many of them did not even know that Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. How on earth does that happen? How on earth do you plan a trip to this place, to go to this specific place to learn about this person and not know some of those essential details about that place and that person? Well, the thing is, the story, as it has been told and handed down over the last few hundred years about Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, has largely been written by people who look like Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, rather than the perspective of the people that they literally owned. So one of the tour guides who was leading this tour of Monticello put it this way. He said, "I've come to realize there's a difference between history and nostalgia, and somewhere between the two is memory. I think that history is the story of the past, using all the available facts, and that nostalgia is a fantasy about the past using no facts. And somewhere in between is memory, which is kind of this blend of history and a little bit of emotion. I mean, history is kind of what you need to know, but nostalgia is what you want to hear." This is kind of what we're trying to do through this series, Campfire Stories. We're not actually trying to delve into all of the history. History is a little bit complicated, especially when you're talking about stories that are 2,500, 3,000 years old, and the history is a little bit hard to track. We're not exactly doing history. We're also not doing nostalgia. We're not just saying we're going to blow past all those facts and just talk about these stories and how we have been taught to feel about them. Instead, we're trying to create this like shared memory that balances the two and says, what if we came at these ancient stories as if we were gathered around a campfire? There are important details that we don't want to simply brush under the rug, but that maybe aren't important when we say, why has this story been passed down and survived for thousands of years? Why has it continued to be told? And what does it tell us about God, ourselves, and the world? So last week we talked about Noah and the big boat. And then this week, as Anna read just a few minutes ago, we're talking about Rahab the Survivor. How many of you have heard Rahab's story before? All right, maybe half of you. So Rahab's story is nowhere near as familiar as the story of Noah. But the larger story of which Rahab is a part might be a little bit more familiar. So Rahab's story fits within this overall story of the story of Jericho and the wall around Jericho. So as the Israelites are leaving their slavery in Egypt, they're about to enter their land that God had promised them. They land at this big city called Jericho that has this gigantic wall around it. In order to move into the land, they've got to go through Jericho, but they're not able to go through that wall. So first their general sends in spies, which Anna read about and we'll talk about in just a minute. That doesn't go as planned. And so they devise a plan where over the course of 7 days, they're going to march around the city. For 6 days, they march around the city completely silent except for their horns, one time per day, and then they go back to their camp. They do that for 6 days. Then on the 7th day, they walk around the city 7 times, again silent, until the end of that 7th time, and then they're all going to yell, and as soon as they yell, the walls are going to crumble down, and suddenly Jericho is completely exposed, and the army of the people of Israel are going to be able to move in and capture this city and move into the land of promise. This is the story that Rahab's story fits within. And we're all like, yay, God! We actually sang songs about this when I was a kid. But once we get into some of those details and we like scratch at the surface a little bit more, it gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit concerning even. First, there's this idea of this wall. Do we really think that this is how the destruction of Jericho would have happened? They just marched around the wall and yelled, and then God knocked it down. Then there's the archaeology. Jericho is one of the most dug spots in all of the Middle East, and there is no sign of a wall at Jericho, the time at which there would have needed to be a wall at Jericho. Ooh. Okay, well that creates some problems, but maybe we can get around those. One big problem that we're not able to get around that is not so much historical as it is moral is the idea of the people who were living there. You see, in order for the people of Israel to move in, they had to do something with the people who were living there. And according to the story, which comes straight from the Bible, which we did not include in the children's version of the story, God instructs them, when the walls come down, you are to go in, and except for Rahab and her family, you are to kill everything that breathes. Men and women, young and old, even all the animals. If it breathes, you knock it out. According to the people who told this story and continued to communicate this story down through Scripture, that is what God told them to do. Woof. We are not going to engage in some of those details today. If you want to talk about some of those complicating details, I would love to talk with you about some of those complicating details because they're tricky. But that doesn't actually, those details don't actually get at the more important thing that we're trying to do today and we're trying to do in this series, which is answer the question, why did this story continue to be handed down? Why does it continue to be told? And what does it tell us about God, ourselves, and the world? So Anna read this story a few minutes ago, and like I said, it simplifies some of the details. It removes some of the details. It glosses over some. It emphasizes other things, especially because we have kids up here. And one of those details that we kind of gloss over a little bit in the story is that the spies come in and lie down in Rahab's house. Lie down is a euphemism for something else. We'll just put it that way. In this story, as it is told and as it is handed down and as it is retold, Rahab is continually named and shamed as a sex worker. She is a prostitute, and it is called out over and over and over again. But the important thing to remember is perspective. The people who were writing down this story and continuing to communicate this story were coming from a privileged, a powerful perspective. They were men writing this story from a male perspective that would not necessarily have taken into account Rahab's perspective or a woman's perspective in this story. But think about the men in this story. Let's just take the two spies. They have one job. You know that meme? You had one job. Their one job was to go into the city and to gain reconnaissance. The first thing they do is they go and lay down in Rahab's house. And they don't do it very sneakily because they immediately get discovered. And yet Rahab is the one who gets the bad reputation for being the immoral one. Come on, dudes. You can do better than this. It's almost as if men should sometimes not be fully trusted to tell the story of women. Just saying that. What? Yeah. So let's take Rahab's perspective into play. So what happens is this story gets continued to be handed down, and people come along who are different from the dominant perspective. Most recently, that would again be women and people of color who look at this story, who look at the situation that Rahab would have been in, and said, Rahab, people like Rahab 3,000 years ago, but also people like Rahab today, they don't have their own agency to make their own choices. They're not doing this because it's convenient. They're doing what is necessary for them to survive. So Rahab's story is one of a survivor. She is figuring out how to survive and get by in life. She is figuring out how to help her family survive. And by the end of the story, she's figuring out how to help other people survive, including these spies who she's never met before. Rahab continues to be named and shamed as a prostitute, but she is not that. She is not defined by that. Rahab is a survivor. And by the end of the story, she gets called out as Rahab the hero. Rahab doesn't appear again in the Old Testament, which is like the first 3/4 of the Bible. But by the New Testament, she gets called out 3 different times. Once as an example of faith, one as an example of faithful action, and then she actually gets named in the genealogy of Jesus. In the Gospel of Mark, which is one of the 4 biographies about the life of Jesus, she gets named in the family line from which Jesus descended. Usually when you're doing a genealogy of a king, you want to make it look as good as possible. That doesn't happen with Jesus' genealogy. And Rahab, this person of unspeakable actions, gets included in not only the family of God, but in Jesus' direct line. However, the other 2 examples, the other 2 people who mention Rahab, guess what they call her? Rahab the prostitute. Even after all this time, after all she's done, they are still naming and shaming her as that thing rather than who she truly is. Rahab is not that. Rahab is a survivor. Rahab is a hero. And most importantly, Rahab is a beloved child of God. So why do we continue to tell this story? Why do we continue to hand down this story? Why has it been told even uncomfortably to children? What does it tell us about God, ourselves, and the world? I think one of the reasons we continue to tell this story and to hand it down is that people continue to name and shame us for things that we have done. Said that is your true identity. It's not true, folks. This is what Will Gaffney, who's a womanist scholar, says about Rahab and her legacy. Joshua keeps calling her that woman who does that thing as though that thing was all she ever did, all she ever was, or all she ever could be. Is somebody calling you out of your name today? Don't let anybody, prophet or pastor, define you by what you have done, even if you're still doing it. You are God's child. 1,000 years before Jesus ministered to another Canaanite woman, Rahab believed that God was a respecter of persons. Rahab believed that it didn't matter what you had done or what had been done to you. There's a place for you in the people of God. Rahab knew it didn't matter if folk call you out of your name when God calls you daughter. That's who Rahab is, God's daughter. Never mind that the epistle to the Hebrews and James still call her a prostitute. Some folk will continue to tell your old stories, but if God has brought you out, there are new stories to be told. Anybody get goosebumps with that? One of the first things that you will see and hear at the Grove is something that we call our welcome statement. It is one of the first things that you'll see when you'll visit our website. It's one of the first things you'll see when you walk through those main doors. And it is on the front of this worship handout that you got. And it's there every single week. And I want to specifically call out the second one, which says, "Be who you are, you'll be celebrated." We honor the sacred worth and dignity of persons of every age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical and mental capacity, education, economic, and marital status. This is everywhere. We want it to be right out front. And it's not because we have an agenda. It's not because we're trying to accomplish something other than making people know that they are welcome. You are welcome just as you are. You are a beloved child of God. You are a survivor. You are even a hero. That's why we continue to tell the story of Rahab. She was a survivor, a hero, and a beloved child of God. Do not let anyone tell you that you are other than that. Let it be so.
I immediately knew the song we had to end with today is one that's only about 10 years old, so relatively new in the Christian music scene. But man, 10 years in Christian music world is like a lifetime. So I'm going to call this an old song, even though it's not. A lot of popular Christian music, like that you hear on the radio and stuff, you might find that a theme that you hear in that music is focused on the worst parts of ourselves, and that, like, how could it be that God would still love us and want to, even though we're so terrible? And in the midst of all of those voices on Christian radio 10 years ago, this guy, Jason Gray, comes out with this song called Remind Me Who I Am. And the music video is really beautiful, too. I encourage you to go watch it. He's, like, going down the road in his pickup truck, and he's seeing all these people on the side of the road holding up cardboard signs that have a word or words that describe them in the way that the world would describe them. And he picks them up, and then by the end of the video, they flip their cardboard signs over, and it just says, beloved. And over again, they recognize that in the eyes of the world, they might be seen for their worst, but in the eyes of God, they're seen for their best. And they're seen as beloved. And it's such a beautiful reminder to me today, especially in the story of Rahab, that we're not defined by what people will say about us or how people see us or misunderstand us. We're defined by the Creator. Would you all stand or rise as you're able? And if you have the lyrics to this, I want to try singing. You may not be familiar with this song, so it might be a little harder to sing along on the verses, but let's try the chorus together, because it's such a great declaration. Tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Tell me lest I forget who I am to you. I belong to you. All right, sing along as you feel comfortable. When I lose my way and I forget my name, remind me who I am. In the mirror, all I see is who I don't want to be. Remind me who I am. In the loneliest places, when I can't remember what grace is, tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Tell me lest I forget who I am to you. I belong to you. When my heart is like a stone and I'm running far from home, remind me who I am. When I can't receive your love, afraid I'll never be enough, remind me who I am. And if I'm your beloved, can you help me believe it? Tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Oh, tell me lest I forget who I am to you. I belong to you.
Once again, it was so good to be with you this morning. Just one thing before you leave, the one most, maybe not the most important thing, but one of the things that we do on a monthly basis is that we provide a free meal to the community as a part of cooperation with Community Ed and with Sawashko Cares, and we call it Saturday Supper Club. So this coming Saturday, we have that opportunity. We're at 5 to 6 p.m. We're going to be providing that meal. People drive up, and we often run out of meals because the need is so high. However, if you are a person that helps hand out the meals, it's a really rewarding experience and also really good even for little kids to be able to participate in. So if you're interested, we need like a couple volunteers who are willing to help with that. If you're interested in helping with Saturday Supper Club, that's this coming Saturday, you'd need to be available at about 4:30 because people start lining up, even though we don't begin until 5. If you're interested in helping with that, grab me afterwards, and I'll make sure you get the additional information that you need. Okay, I think that's it. So you're already standing. I'll have you extend your hands to receive the blessing, then we'll be on our way to enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. May we reject the stories and the storytellers that would define us by the things that we have done. And instead, may you know that you are a survivor. You are in some respects a hero, and you are most certainly a child of God. And may we help others to know that they too are survivors, they too are heroes, and they too are beloved children of God. Let it be so. Amen. Warren, are you up for making a fire? Okay, we're going to have a fire here so that we can make s'mores because it's Campfire Stories. So you're welcome to stay and hang as long as you'd want out here in the grove. And we will provide the s'mores stuff.